Aloha, mahalo for joining us for Lā Honua Malama Honua Earth Day, Earth Month, especially to our Kauhale, our community of students, staff, and faculty. These events have been made possible by the Lā Honua Earth Day Committee, the Office of the Chancellor at Hawaiʻi Community College and Hilo, the Office of Sustainability and Vista Sustainability Initiatives Program at Hawaiʻi Community College and Hilo, the Tropical Conservation Biology and Environmental Science Graduate Program at Hilo, the Aloha Hawaii Lifestyles Program at Hawaiʻi Community College, Kipuka Native Hawaiian Student Center at Hilo, Pacific Internships for Exploring Sciences at Hilo, Keʻaulani STEM at Hilo, and the Sustainability Communities of Hilo and Hawaiʻi Community College. The theme for Lā Honua Symposium is Wanana Ika Mauliola, Projecting and Manifesting a Thriving Earth. The session you are in right now is Sustainable Cultural Practices of Hawaii Nui Kuaʻuli and is presented by the Ka Leo o ka Uluau Podcast Team and guests, including Kēhaulani Marshall, Henani Enos, who I think is unable to attend as he is attending to the Hokalea and Hikianalia, Nohealani Kaʻawa, Kaʻimi Kaupiko, Bruce Torres Fischer, Leilani DeMello, and Drew Kapp. My name is Carrie Ingalls, and I am serving as moderator for this session along with Anya Benavides. This session is scheduled to run until 5:30 p.m. We ask that you try your best to remain in this session until it ends. If you must leave early, you may do so, but please do as discreetly as possible. Please remain muted during this session. But if you have any questions or feedback during this session, do feel free to use chat. And Anya or I will pose those questions to the presenters throughout our session. The presenters may also invite verbal interaction throughout the session. Please be considerate of any requests made by our presenters. We are privileged and honored to have them with us here today to share with us, and we ask our audience to be attentive and respectful. You will eventually be emailed a survey, which will also be accessible on our Lā Honua website. We would love to receive your feedback about your Lā Honua experience. And with that, I'll turn things over to the Ka Leo o ka Uluau Podcast Team. Mahalo again for your support of Lā Honua.
Ka mauna ulua kua uli ulahi vela maka mole a olo. Ko ka la ulu e pua ka puna vai a moku ola. Maluku mauna ma malai pui ke kupona e. Hu mai ka lua moku a veo veo I ka ni o ka pue ke apu nei hina ka malua me ke alu. Ho honui ho lau ka puai I ka pouli e. E ulu ka honua ne a mauli o la la. Aloha mahi e, aloha mahi e. Aloha everyone, welcome to our Kaleo Kauluau podcast team and guests for Lā Honua Malama Honua Earth Day, Earth Month 2022. My name is Drew Kapp, and on behalf of our fabulous committee, the Hui Lā Honua, I welcome all of you folks to our session today, featuring these panelists who integrate awesome, sustainable practices, traditional, rooted in place practices into their lives and work. So we are honored to have them here today. I just want to give a super brief introduction to what we're going to do, and a shout out to the folks who have worked tirelessly to make this thing happen. We have folks from both Hilo and Hawaiʻi Community College, people like Charlotte Cheek, Noel Tagab Cruz, Kumakaʻe Alliance from the HCC side. We have Michelle Shui and Anya Benavides and Carrie Ingalls and Kekoa Harmon from the Hilo side, who have contributed immeasurably to the success of Earth Month so far. And we are truly indebted to our special panelists today. What we're going to do is our three Kaleo Kauluau podcast team members are going to provide just a short introduction to the podcast for you folks, and then we're just going to get right into asking our panelists questions about how it is that they integrate sustainable practices into their lives. And we're going to also talk a little bit about the theme of Earth Month, which is Wananaika Mauliola, as Carrie mentioned, right? The idea of projecting and manifesting a healthy Earth, right? So having our ability to foresee, have the gift of foresight, right? That allows us to foresee perhaps obstacles that may be in our way, figuring out how to overcome and navigate them to achieve well-being. That's the point. So I'm just going to really quickly screen share a few slides for you folks. So, and then Bruce is going to kind of take it away and provide a little bit more context about our podcast. So hang on one second. Okay, hopefully everyone can see. Mahalo again for being here. Great, this is a special event. And then we just want to mahalo those folks who have taken some of their precious time to be with us today. And you see their names here, and Carrie also brought them forth for you earlier as well. I'm gonna allow Bruce to share a little bit about our podcast with you folks. So Bruce, you wanna take it away?
Hello everyone, I'm Bruce. I'm privileged to be one of the members of the Uluau Podcast recording team. I'm just going to give a little bit of background information about Uluau because that's one of the things that's tying us together today for this Earth Day here at 4 o'clock on this beautiful Thursday, Mahawai'i. So Uluau, as you've heard by now, it's a podcast. It originally started with the UHL Importance of Place Committee because during the time of COVID, we couldn't go on Huakai. So Drew is the awesome instructor of Ho'ike Honua of geography at HaCC and UHilo. And his classes are renowned for their Huakai. And we usually go and visit different places and do service learning. And just like we visit Nohealani Kaʻawa at Kaiholena and a few other places, as well as Puanui with Kehau. And all the students get to learn and gather together, and it's a really awesome experience on a day of service learning. But since we couldn't do that for the last 2 years, there was this idea to make a podcast, to have a huakai in a bottle, or in a podcast rather. So that was our purpose, to Kama'aina people, both students, the general community, and people here at UH Hilo, to the Aina of Hawaii, through learning about mo'olelo. And that's why we have our awesome guests or panelists that have all been in Uluau to share about their wahi and their practices and the mo'olelo of their places. So that's really the purpose of Uluau, to ho'okama'aina, to acquaint everyone to Hawaii, so we appreciate the place that we all call home more and take care of it. The name Uluau translates to the voice of the Uluau wind. Uluau is a wind from Waiakea, and there are a few ways to break it down. We're based here in Hilo, so it's kind of a Hilo-centric name. Sorry to all the other moku, but yeah. So wind can sometimes represent the human voice. There are a few sayings in Hawaiian, and yeah, wind can sometimes equal voice metaphorically. So that's why we chose Uluau wind. And if you break down Uluau, this isn't exactly what Uluau might mean, but one way of looking at it is Ulu and Au. Ulu means to grow, and Au is me. So I grow. So we hope that everyone can grow by listening to Uluau, and we definitely have in making it. So that's the name. And the people I mentioned, we had 24 episodes in season 1, and we had a bunch of awesome guests from all of the moku on Hawaii Island, and we had 4 episodes in each district, 4 different mo'olelo. So go check them out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Uluau, write them down and go listen and have fun doing so. And season 1, as I mentioned, focused more on mo'olelo and learning about the Aina and the places and the geography. whereas season 2 had a slightly different focus. And right now we're in season 2 this year. By learning about Mo'olelo last year, we now have a kuleana. Since you know the story and you know about the place, we now need to take care of it. So that's the focus of season 2, is sustainability. And that can have a lot of definitions, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about what sustainable really means. It can be a little bit vague sometimes. But we're traveling around the moku, around the different moku, once again, to learn more about what sustainable Hawaiian cultural practices are happening and how that can inform us to live, to be better stewards of the land. So that's our focus today, and that's sort of what we're going to talk about, I think, on this panel. So with that, mahalo to all of our guests, to our panelists, and let's go over to them now. Unless I forgot anything, Leah and Drew, feel free to chime in.
I'm just going to mention real quickly that we also have these awesome story maps, and you can check those out on our blog. We'll put the link in the chat that way, because it's a lot to remember, but check it out for sure. And Facebook and Instagram.
That was a great introduction. Mahalo, Bruce. So the three of us, Lei and Bruce and I, formed this podcast team, and we're super excited to hear from our guests. So if we're ready, Lei, do you want to introduce our first panelist?
Kalamai, looking for the unmute button. It's my pleasure to welcome our guest, Kēhaulani Marshall, who is from Waimea on this island. She is one of many parents who helped open Kanu'oka'aina Public Charter School, of which she had the privilege of teaching and learning there for 10 years. Kēhaulani dedicates her time and aloha as executive director of Uluau Puanui, which is in Kohala, and she's on a mission to get as many people as possible to know that that our kupuna were fantastic farmers. Mahalo nui for joining us, Kēhaulani.
Aloha, everyone. Mahalo for having me. Look forward to the questions. You want me to share anything else?
Could you please share a little bit about your traditional practices and how they're incorporated in your life?
Okay, mahalo. I thought you was going to introduce everyone and then come back. Kalamai. I've had the privilege of working in the Ahupua'a of Puanui in North Kohala, and I've learned a lot. I've had the privilege of being there for 10 years. Probably one of my biggest takeaways that I've discovered was my sense of time. And I think we live in a world where we expect immediacy and convenience, and that seems to supersede a lot of the things that we do and even shape our decisions. But when you're working on the aina, or when I've been working on the aina in the Ahupua'a of Puanui, a lot happens on the aina, but it happens over time. And as a result, I've, with my kilo, engaging observational skills with all my senses, the one sense that is prominent, I would say, is, for lack of a better term, I hear voices when I'm on the aina. There's a presence there. A lot of people, when they come and do service learning, or even if we're just doing an introduction to the Kohala Dryland Agricultural Field System, a lot of them have a feeling of a presence, and they like to mahalo myself and the people that I have the privilege of working with. And we always like to say it's not us. It really isn't. You know, we're just the human Kanaka host that they happen to see because we're on the same realm. But the experience that people experience when they're on the aina is our ancestors. It's the kupuna, it's the aina, it's the mana that's left in the aina. And if we are paying attention, then we get to share a little bit of that mana. So that's one thing that I've learned over time, is the aina has a personality. It's a character for sure. Those of you who have been to Kohala have experienced the 40+ mile an hour gusts that we endure. I remember one time I was talking to someone and they were recording, and I told them it wouldn't be a good time to record just because of the makani. And oh, by the way, the makani up there, the famous makani of Kohala is the Apa'a winds. It's pretty regular too up there. Anyways, they were trying to record, and it was very blustery. I couldn't even hear myself think, let alone try to talk. And anyways, I was kind of fussy, and I made with my hand. I was like, oh, stop already. You know, like when you have, if you are parents and you have little ones and you just like on your last nerve, I was almost there and I was like, oh, stop already. I couldn't like think or anything. And then I continued to walk, and then it dawned on me, the wind stopped. And I stopped, and I was like, holy wow. I didn't know what to think, or, you know, I was like, first thing come out of my mouth was, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be fussy. I was just trying to think, and I was overwhelmed with everything that was happening, you know, and then of course the gusts continued, but that kind of stopped me in my tracks. And that's when I realized that the ancestors and the kupuna are always around. And if we just be present, not be distracted with the many things that distract us, we will hear them, we will see them, and we will feel them. And if we are having an exchange and establishing a relationship with them, we know what to do. So on the Aina, there are many things that we, Malama, in the Kohala field system, our ancestors were successful and fantastic farmers, growing sweet potato as the food crop for over 30,000 people, with the capacity to feed over 30,000 people. We can't even do that today, you guys, just with anything, you know. So the idea that they were doing that, and that it was a rain-fed only or unirrigated system, is pretty amazing. There are many ahu across the ahupua'a, and I always wondered about them. And then all of a sudden, over time, these things, you know, come to me, the ike comes to me, and I realized, oh, our ancestors were praying all the time. That's why there's ahu all over the place. We had to pule for the rain, and the mahalo for the little bit of rain that we would get, and the harvest that we would get. So in that light, I think it's just, if we try to understand if we want to understand the best practices for the Aina, we need to be present and just listen to that Aina, to the winds, to the rains, in my case, we have had dry spells, a series of dry spells. And because I've been there, I've been able to, I don't know how to say this, but I know when it's coming. I know that it's not just a dry day. I know like a dry spell is happening, and we need to prep for that. And so then our actions and our activities on the Aina will change to adjust for those dry spells that are happening. We've had like 3 last year, and then we started this year with a mean one. And that determines, that directs our work. So whatever the Aina is saying to us, it's in our best interest to pay attention and respond. And in working with the resources of the Aina, the rain, in our case, the wind, and the very nutrient dense soil in that area, we've learned that we need the recipe needs to be, we need the recipe, a good recipe for all these things so that things grow well. We are a really big part of that recipe as the kanaka on the Aina. Because if we're not paying attention, we're going to miss opportunities to plant to plant at the right time, to plant the right stuff, to plant in the right space, in my case, things like that. So, okay, I'm starting to repeat myself. Be present, pay attention is what I've learned. Adjust our sense of time. I think that will benefit us. And as far as a healthy planet, a healthy place, we can do anything. You guys, we have the capacity with the modern tools. We have a lot of ike that has been a resurgence. I'm an older person, so when I was young, a lot of the culture was not taught the way that it is today. And there's a lot more in my lifetime that I see, and people are active. A lot of our natives are getting PhDs, and not just to have letters after their name, but so that they can continue to contribute to the community and to our lahui. It's pretty magnificent where we're at right now, prime. But if we cannot be responsible with that potency that we have in the ike, in the academics, in access to aina, it won't matter. Our ancestors, I believe, they mimicked everything in nature. So when they built our nation, it was a mimicking of nature. They made decisions so that our resources would remain intact as we continue to build. It's something that we've lost, I think, in modern times today. We've sort of grown, but we didn't take care of our resources. So for projecting a healthy well-being for the people and for the aina, I think we need to return to making a priority our resources. Like whatever decision we make, it has to be around the resources. How is this going to impact the resources? And of course, aloha. You know, when we all have aloha, we manifest these things. You know, if you are coming out with aloha, with your hana, with your attitude, with your openness to learn new things and integrate best practices, even if you don't agree, you know, you can try. That manifests into some really good things. And I've got to see that on the aina over time. So yeah, mahalo.
Mahalo nui Kehau. That was beautiful and inspiring. And I'm just thinking, just the other day, like you often do, you were hosting a group of community members at Puanui in the uplands of Kohala. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about like what a typical day of your work is like, at least in terms of what you're speaking of, the interaction with the environment and its elements, and also just the work that you do and how the community is engaged in that. Do you mind? This is just the other day, like last Saturday, right?
Yes, yeah, just Saturday. Yeah, not a problem. When people come to Puanui, for many, a lot of people don't realize that the Kohala dryland agricultural field system was what built the nation of Hawaii. And we like to introduce that. We like to share the history of the area. But when you come onto the aina, we will start with oli or ho'olauna. If you want to offer an oli, we would definitely receive that with much aloha and gratitude. Then we do ho'olauna, we introduce ourselves, and depending on the day, and this is on our checklist when you're preparing to come visit us at Puanui, the elements will direct and dictate the day's efforts. So if it happens to be sideways rain and wind, then we are going to strategically work on the leeward side of the sugarcane, the rows of sugarcane, so as to remain a little bit more dry. Also at that time, if you are a coordinator for the group, it's up to you to endure the day. We will show up regardless of the conditions because we cannot wait for the perfect day to do the things that we do. You know, whatever the day presents, we believe it's for that hui. So if it's coming down sideways rain, 40+-mile-an-hour gust winds, then it tells me that you guys have a level of resilience. So we're just going to hana in those conditions. If it happens to be a really quiet day, we've had more than normal recently, lots of kona weather. But if there's no wind, that kind of freaks us out. So then we're going to be like, okay, this means that whatever we have to say, they need to hear. So we're very, not necessarily strategic, but we're definitely purposeful with whatever it is we're going to share. And a lot of the times it happens to be hui that have not been on many huaka'i. And so it might be a lot for them a first time. And so it allows us to be gentle so that we can prep them for their next huaka'i. And then we'll do whatever works. So depending on the moon, we'll plant, harvest, or do some maintenance things. And the maintenance things will be cleaning the rows of ko from the fallen ko, and let's see, yeah, cutting it and organizing it. We work like the kupuna in a very neat and organized manner and with intention. Or if we're harvesting, then that looks different. It depends on what it's uala usually. The two main crops are uala and ko. Uala is a food crop and ko is its companion. The ko is planted in rows perpendicular to the wind so that the rows of ko can slow down the wind and bring in the rains. The ko acts as a mist catcher or rain catcher and waters the uala below. So you'll see alternating rows of ko and uala in our area. We work in two mala. One of them is a half square acre, and that's the one that most people visit only because of time. And most people don't have 4-wheel drive. So if you don't have 4-wheel drive, you're hiking in and then you're hiking out. It's not terrible, but it is uphill on the way out. We do a hike up Pu'ukehena so that we can show you how big the Kohala field system is. It's one thing for us to say that it's 25 square miles big. It's another thing to see just a third of it and see how massive that is and try to comprehend how it is that our ancestors successfully cultivated that area for food. It was a dryland forest before the ancestors turned it into the field system. And we go all over that during the huaka'i. And then when we're out, we like to do a closing circle and reflection. Hopefully people will, we like to capture those moments while they're on the aina, not send them home for a survey. We don't like to do paper surveys either. We like them to ha'iolelo, to share their experience. We have various prompts that we engage in, and that is determined again on the ano, or I don't know another word for ano, the personality or dynamic of the group. Yeah. So yeah, a lot is left for the dynamic of the group and how we are reading that group, how much time they have, the moon phase, and the elements that we're working with. So not everyone has the same experience when they come to the Ahupua'a Puanui. I think I answered the question.
You sure did. That was great. Mahalo nui. It sounds like a wonderful day. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Kēhaulani. I would like to, I have some notes written down for an introduction for Nohealani Kaʻawa, but I'm not going to say them because I just have to personally say that Nohealani Kaʻawa, our next guest, has been one of the most influential people on me and the way that I approach education. I know some of you folks in the audience are actually among my students. And so I've learned so much from Nohealani Kaʻawa. She was once a student of mine in a geography class back in Hawaii CC, and we don't even need to say how long ago that was. But back in Kanakaʻole Hall in Hilo, and Nohea would stay after class. Do you remember Nohea? And we would talk about places and about mo'olelo, stories of place. And I had such a profound, she had such a profound impact on me just starting then. And so since then, she has been an incredible host for my students. We huaka'i when we can to the District of Ka'u as much as we can. And Nohea is the person who takes my students to these amazing wahipana, these legendary places, these places with pulse, with life and pulse, and shares about them. And it's just had a profound influence on all of us. So I just want to so it's kind of cool that Kēhaulani is joining us from the Northern Kohala district, right? This land of wind. And now we're going to go to the opposite side of the island to Waihinu, great area where Nohea lives. And also another land of wind too, right? And anyway, she does amazing stuff with different organizations, and now the Nature Conservancy and Hawaii Wildlife Fund, working Mauka to Makai in the District of Ka'u. When we go to Ka'u with Nohea, she doesn't always say that she's from Ka'u, but she says something else. Do you want to say what it is, Nohea? Okay, mahalo for being here.
Mahalo, Drew. What a lovely introduction. It just sounds so much bigger than what I feel. But yeah, I don't like to tell people that I'm from Ka'u. I tell people that I am Ka'u. And I think all of us, when you really love your aina and where you come from, and when you can trace your identity through your mo'okuahau back to the aina where your family originates, you eat of the land and you really live the land. And like Kehal was saying, she could name her winds, and I bet you she could probably name her ocean currents, the clouds. You know exactly precisely what time the certain rains will come. So how much time you have to do what you need to do before, you should start heading elsewhere. That's what Ka'u is for me, and when you are taught all of this knowledge from your kupuna and you see their life pass before your eyes, they become part of the aina when you return them to to Po. The land is ohana, and you feel that in your na'au. That's who I am, And I do a lot of work with many organizations in Ka'u. I work with the Nature Conservancy as the Hawaii Island Forest Program Coordinator, and I also work with Hawaii Wildlife Fund. We do marine habitat restoration. And our angle of sustainability is a lot different from what Kehau had mentioned. You know, I come from a time where there was a vision that our kupuna saw for Ka'u, and that vision was to acquire as much lands as we could here for the protection and preservation so that we can live sustainably. And so that vision was way before my time. But just recently, through my eyes, I was able to see that transaction happen. And it's a beautiful time to be here, but we have acquired about 80 miles long of coastline, and it to be protected and preserved for a really long time. And that was through working with different partnerships. So, you know, you have Volcano National Parks, and then you have the state, and then you have the Nature Conservancy, there's Kamehameha Schools, and then Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and you continue on. There's little private landowners here and there, but we have built relationship enough with them to know that, you know, this is what your neighbor's doing here, and the other neighbor on this side is wanting the same thing. So, you know, if you bridge that gap, we can all kind of like be neighbors and be good with it, you know. And then the national park just purchased the Pohue area, the Kahupu Ahupua'a Makai, and then it goes on into the natural area reserve system. But I am really happy to say that in my time, I'm able to still gather from our aina, our kai, and my kids will be able to have the same. And that was because of the vision our kupuna had beyond the time where I was born. So that's all I have to say for now. Unless you guys have questions. I mean, Kehau, I would say drop the mic, but mute the mic because she covered everything in your little pauku of introduction. That was everything. You just kind of took the words right out of. I think we all kind of resonate with the same, you know, thoughts and feelings and emotion when speaking of our onehana.
Mahalo nui.
And last but definitely not least, it's my pleasure to introduce Kaʻimi Kaupiko from He Keiki Ka'aina no Miloli'i from Miloli'i, who is also a kumu at Kua'okala and a staunch advocate for the preservation and perpetuation of fishing practices in Miloli'i. And all three of us had the pleasure of meeting him earlier this year for the first time. And we really saw how involved he is in his community and how much he cares for the aina and for his kai over there and for the community as a whole, and trying to do what's right and protect it in the face of this ever-changing and challenging at times world. So mahalo nui e Kaʻimi for coming and joining us today.
Mahalo, Bruce, and aloha to all of you guys and our fellow panelists. I'm so humbled to be here. My dear cousin, Ui, invited me to come, and I really enjoyed my first podcast with you all. But aloha, my name is Kaʻimi Kaupiko from Miloli'i. I'm born and raised here, and went away, but came home about 10 years ago to help my ohana, but you know, really to kind of give back to this place that I really am so blessed to come from. A lot of people know us as one of those last communities that really a lot of our people living off the land and trying to survive, and it's still that feeling today. You know, I can share. We're very a small community, very private, but we, you know, our lifestyle is so well recognized by so much people, and I'm just thankful I'm part of that journey and story. So I got to share a little bit about our current program. So I'm a kumu here at our charter school in Miloli'i called Kuokala. The virtual site is called Hipu'u. So we teach our students in the culture down here, and you know, create projects and really get them connected to the place. And particularly that leads me into my community work, which is really our work to malama this coastline that sustains us. So we're in the midst of something really big for our community. It's not an easy word to say, but it's our community-based subsistence fishing area. And I shared a little bit earlier with the audience on my podcast with Drew and Lei. And I was so blessed to, you know, just continue to share, you know, the works that we have been doing to really, the goal is for us to co-manage and to really take care of it, because this has been given to, you know, to us, you know, as the stewards of this aina, wherever we come from. And I don't know the other first panelists, but I would love to come up to Kohala and take our students. And of course I know Nohea we're so close to each other, so we've been working on different programs, and we have brought our keiki to her ahopua too. But my community work is a lot to do with the work that my kupuna have set aside for us to make sure that we protect these traditional practices, specifically Lavaia practices that practically surround this community that I live in, Miloli'i. So we're working with the state for the last 5 years to create a management plan and rules that will be able to really reaffirm what we have been doing and what our people have been doing for many generations. I think was something that you know, I feel so blessed to do. And so next week we'll be having a huge public hearing on April 20th to actually for all of our ohana and also everyone outside of our community to really put it out there, our connection to take ownership of what our kupuna have left, but also what this place dictates us to do, because we are its stewards. And our proposal is, it's not a small proposal, it's pretty big, because we're trying to manage 18.6 miles of coastline from Kipohoihoi to Kauna, which is all in front of us. It's our waters that feed us and takes care of us, and we feel this is what our ohana has been trying to do to maintain, and hopefully it can continue to feed us for the next 7 generations. So if we get past, we'll be the second community to have this opportunity to co-manage. And really for us is the ability to come into a system and really change it to what our kupuna have been doing. So I can share a little bit more about this proposal, but that's what my heart is right now to share, because this is such a wonderful time for us in Miloli'i as we go forward in this movement that we hope to really put our name on something, so that when our grandchildren, great grandchildren see this, they'll be like, wow, our ohana stood up for something that is so important to our culture. So mahalo.
Mahalo nui. I have a question for you, Kaʻimi. Could you maybe tell us a little? I can ask questions now, right? True. Okay.
Everyone can ask questions.
Yeah, everyone asks questions too. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the fishing practices, how you interpret that through the lens of sustainability, and also where we're at right now, how has that shifted over time and maybe become not as sustainable with, I don't know, maybe some people coming in, and how you're trying to put that train on its track with what you folks are doing.
I can definitely share. I mean, we're so many different practices. We're similar, and we're unique in our own ways for each of our communities. But you know, one of the famous ones is our practice of hanai opelu, which is unique because we use the traditional dip net, and that style is not really used a lot. A lot of our today, most people use fish and hook to gather. But learning about this tradition is unique because we have a deep relationship to all the different ko'as where we go and hanai. And in our community, each of our ohanas have one specific ko'a that they go into malama. So back in the early, when my great grandparents used to fish, they really try to follow a way that is, pono. And what we learned about is a lot of times, people want to, get faster and make it easier for them. But I think what we learned through the different methods that, we see today, and as time has changed, there's, really has overtaken a lot of our, specifically our different fish from the ocean. So opelu has definitely been changed because, there's many different reasons. One of the reasons is what we feed them. We feed our opelu a specific palu, basically made of vegetable matter. So pumpkin, taro, avocados, and we learn how to balance. So we don't take too much. We make sure, that's very Kanaka style, as long as we can feed our families and survive. But a lot of our today, a lot of people do commercial. They want to get more, and that has changed their habitat. So one of the big things is that we don't like to use one of these palus called chop chop, which basically using fish by meat byproducts, or are using fish to bring in the opelu, because we feel that it can definitely cause bringing more predators, and really, you're changing their habitat, and that becomes more of feeding them in a way that can deplete your ko'as. So we have a program called the Opelu Project, and we really try our best to teach our kamali'i about what is proper ways to opelu in our community. So not every community may follow this particular practice because they have their own style, but for Miloli'i, we really see the change because we really have put it out there. Our lawai'a still continue to feed the ko'as during the closed seasons, and we also during the open seasons we harvest. And from all of the work we have done, we come up with a rule that we're going to put in this proposal. So it actually sees us in the practice, doing the work, doing the hana, making our observations, kiloing, understanding what's happening to the resource, because with overfishing, with the climate and all of these things, the impacts have changed. So a lot of our kupuna, especially the ones who've been fishing all their lives, have seen the changes, and we are now having to make these adaptive rules to really try to adhere to seeing that what they're sharing, we can start to immediately make decisions. And that is where you can see this proposal really having an effect on our way of life, so that we can see it continue to be protected. So in Miloli'i, our rule is for opelu is mostly during the open season, you can use the dip net, but when it's 6 months off, you're not going to use the dip net. You can still fish and hook, and that's basically our additional rule. The traditional rule already is that we cannot feed chop chop, but this we're going to reaffirm that rule, and then on top of that, we were going to put a size limit, but that was the ohana never liked that rule. So you can see us doing all kind of different things in this one style of fishing that is now coming to this point where we can see it as adopted in the rules, and let everybody know, whoever comes to fishing Miloli'i, this is what is expected of them.
Mikai, mahalo nui.
Does anyone else have questions at this point that you'd like to pose to our panelists? Okay, I do. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Maybe one of the moderators can read this question.
When are the seasons?
So our opelu season starts in July, August, September, October, November, December, January, and then by February we are closing. So February, March, April, May, June is the time of we just hana and feed. And that's based on our traditional spawning seasons that was already in place. And we're sticking to a specific date too. Before, it was just kind of like adjusted. But in our proposal, we're going to use this time frame as our season for opala fishing.
We do have another kind of a question that maybe some of you actually have addressed already, but it's that, so thank you very much for sharing a little bit about your work and your sustainable traditional cultural practices and your lifestyles. It's a really, it's powerful for us to hear these stories that you folks are sharing. So I think, Kēhaulani, you kind of addressed this already, but if any of you folks would like to talk about the idea of our theme right this year, Lananai ka Mauliola, again, the idea that if we have that gift of foresight, which we do collectively, we're able to project and look ahead and ensure that our well-being is ensured. Do you folks have any thoughts about how that might relate to your work or your life or anything like that? The idea of foresight and ensuring well-being through that ability.
So you're asking us, Drew, or you're asking everybody?
Well, I guess it could be everyone, if anyone has any ideas. But maybe first, if the panelists might have a chance to share their thoughts about that.
Well, you know how I am. I'm all about action. So, you know, whatever you say, whatever intentions you have, you know, guard those carefully, because that's what's going to manifest. And it's difficult, I think, in today's world, where we're just bombarded with so much that, you know, it's so easy to get off track, if you will. But if you just, I think the easiest thing for me is remembering my piko. So if and when I have my piko in alignment, then it becomes the kuleana for me to, what am I going to do to maintain it? And then same with, you know, when I'm off track, you know, what am I going to do to get it back? And so you have to, you know, for me, I have to recognize I'm off track. I have to recognize when, you know, sometimes, especially for students in college, I think we have a tendency to set ourselves up where we have to do this, we have to do that, and et cetera, and you get lost in the have to do's. And if you're a procrastinator, that's really rough. And I'm a procrastinator, so I'm speaking from experience, but I'm always forever trying to get myself back on track, you know, but I had to recognize that the have to really have to analyze that, you know, do I really need to do those things? You know, how is that benefiting my well-being as a person? Because if we're junk, then no matter what we do is going to be junk, you know, so you really need to malama ourselves first. And when we begin to malama ourselves, we begin to listen to our kino, to our attitude, to our inner voice, and all of those things. And when you start to hear those things, we're just, I think I see myself as my body, my kino, as a universe too. And if I learn to pay attention to those things in my universe, then I can pay attention to things in the universe. But it's really difficult if we don't practice listening. And yeah, so again, you know, aligning my piko is the best thing for me, so that I am paying attention to myself and my work, and discerning what is the have to versus what is the most beneficial for myself and the aina that I get to work with, and the people, relationships that matter to me, and things. But yeah, piko.
One thing I forgot to mention in Ka'u is that the Trust for Public Lands and Alakahakai, they've stepped in and helped to purchase a large portion of lands. And in that purchase, we sought out to have, to create community stewardship groups. So that's a big deal for us. We're still in the early phases because the purchase just occurred. But we went out into the community and started telling people like, hey, we've acquired this parcel. We're creating a management plan, you know, come give your input so that we can have community members steward their aina, you know? So it's a kako thing. in traditional ka'u, we always acted as one ohana. And, you know, with so much people moving in, we've kind of strayed away from acting in unison. And so everybody has their own mana'o. And so we always got to readjust, rebalance, like Kehal said, fix ourselves so that we can go in the community and act as that bridge to assist, to bring everybody in to act as an ohana. Because we face, and I'm sure Kaʻimi then probably face the same, where you want to implement some kind of plan for the sake of what is in the best interest of Aina, but everybody has different ways and angles on what they see fit for the land. So what we've tried to do is bring people, first of all, the ones that usually grumble has never been there before. So what we try to do is we invite everybody, and we have like a day of going on a huaka'i, and we introduce them to the space. And, you know, when you have the mo'oku auhau and you know your identity, you can act as the host to bring people in, to have the Aina speak to themselves as individuals. And then, you know, you start to gather as a collective and know how to conduct yourself in that space. So that's always a challenging thing for ka'u. And another thing is knowing your place, because a lot of times people from outside of the ahupua'a want to come in and share their beliefs, but they're not on the Aina. They're not the one doing the hana. They'll stay over there and they'll, you know, namu namu, and it's challenging. But that, going back to what Kehal said, that true aloha, you know, aloha comes in many forms, and you just got to know what type of aloha you need to pull to get the outcome of what the people see as a whole, like the and not just the people, I mean, like how to best be guided and directed by the kupuna, those people. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in.
Do you think that the people of ka'u have a, you know, a reputation of doing exactly what you're just describing, Nohea? Because I feel like we've heard that the people of ka'u have pretty strong convictions and are very, you know, really do take care of their lands in a way that you may not see elsewhere.
And I think that's the importance of knowing your creation stories, knowing those cosmologies, because it orients you to where you are in the world. And then it also allows everybody else who learns of these stories to know who you are, and how they need to conduct themselves in that space. And even though it might be far from our daily consciousness, these stories are little reminders of how we need to act. Because, you know, in ka'u, if you have a leader that only wants to boss people around, tell them what to do, and point the finger without getting in there and being maka'ainana too, you know, you go missing, and that's the end of that story. Nobody saw anything, nobody knows anything, the ali'i is gone, and you know, the moral is, you know, walk the walk, talk the talk, you know, everybody like be that ali'i, but a good ali'i will act as maka'ainana. Fairness. It's all about being fair, having that balance, and having that end result, and strategizing all the different ways, but main thing, you get to that end result.
Mahalo. Kaʻimi, is there anything you would like to share related to this idea?
I'm just thinking, you know, when we went through our process to where we're at creating our CBSFA, it's important to really, you know, get the story. I mean, really share and make sure everybody is part of the process. I think that's been my, I think our overcoming our obstacles was definitely know who you are is critical, and how you relate to this place and Aina. like Auntie Kēhau and Nohea said. And second of all, I think it's this mana'o of agreeing to disagree is critical, because we all have our own opinion, and in Middle East, very, families, they have very strong convictions of what they believe and what they practice. But when we can sit down and we can talk through it and we can get over our issues, we realize we're all the same, and we can really come together and do something productive, because we're really the ones that have the relationship to place. Yeah, when we look at who really is the ones that don't, but who control it, is definitely where we need to know, who we up against. And for our ohana, we have to overcome a lot of our own personal issues to get where we are at today. And I feel very blessed because, we're a young team. So a lot of our people in our core team that's really doing things in Middle East is not like our older, like my dad and his generation. I mean, because they're very the kind old Hawaiian style. You say it once, that's it. They're not gonna, keep on going back and forth, because trust is always a big issue. And they have really given up a lot on what has happened to our people in a sense of, how the kuleana of our state to malama our ohanas in our specific community, where we're kind of way off on a beaten path in Middle East. But in general, we see that we need to stand up and we need to do what is right. So at this time of our story, it's such a a great story that we can share with others, that if we can all work together, we can accomplish more, and we can get done the things that we all want to see. And that's basically making our place better, making ourselves better, and making our community better. So that's just my 2 cents to that question.
Mahalo.
I have a question for our panelists, if I may. Oh, my airplane is going by. Do you folks being kupa of your respective aina and having that long-term database of all that information from your kilo, your observations, would you mind sharing perhaps an example of something that results from the changing environment, something that has been impacted perhaps negatively by the things that are happening nowadays, and how you might be trying to mitigate that for the future? It could be kai or aina, or just anything that you've observed changing over your life in a negative way, that now you're making those adjustments through your work and through your relationship to these places.
Yeah, I can answer that, because we've been experiencing some wicked dry spells. And we take pride in the idea that the ancestors mastered the rain-fed only agricultural field system, and there's no notes as to the techniques that they applied. There's no mo'olelo or anything. I truly believe that our ancestors thought everybody was a farmer, so everybody was just going to be a farmer, so they didn't have to write that down. Especially when we came into the era of our literacy, being the most literate nation in the early 1800s. There's nothing there. All the notes that are left are from, like, if we were all konohiki and I was passing it on to the next konohiki, I might have in my notes, it was a productive year, or there was a dry spell, or it was famine, or whatever. That's it. So we've had to, the gist of our work is trying to understand the best practices that, based on the few clues that were left, we've integrated some techniques and stuff. But anyways, I've noticed, again, last year we had some dry spells, which were pretty strange and pretty intense. The sun seems much hotter to me lately. My clothes fades faster, I don't remember my clothes fading that fast before. Anyways, so the actions that we're taking is we are looking at designs for water catchment, and nothing terribly large, just, like everything that our kupuna did. And we're trying to keep in mind, the elements that we work with. So we don't need some extravagant rain catchment system. We just need just a rooftop so that we can get some surface water and store some water on the aina and have it there. Currently, I haul water up there, and that's insane. Fortunately, my husband works at a farm where we have access to ag water, so that's nice, but still we need to integrate that, so a rain catchment kind of system to hold the water on the aina there for us. We did experience recently a weird situation. I've never heard of these things called army worms. They are actually caterpillars, and they are top eaters. So they ate, if you can imagine this, it's kind of a blessing, but not, but they ate all the leaf part of the kikuyu grass that kind of chokes out everything in the middle, but great for the cattle, but not so much for farmers. Anyways, wiped it out. The aina was already dry. And then when those worms came in, it just wiped out everything. Cattlemen had to ship off their cattle hundreds of heads earlier than normal. The people who do like these trail walks, the horse trail rides, one of the guys is telling me that the worms is just crawling up the horse's legs, and they won't harm the horses or the humans. They're just chasing kikuyu grass, and that's their favorite. But they ate all my tea leaf, everything that I had, and I was worried about our coal. Anyway, so the perfect storm occurred, so that these are always in the ground. But again, a series of these dry spells just created a perfect storm for them. Also, we weren't getting our regular winds. We were getting plenty kona winds, very malie winds, and then no rains coming in, and that happened. So we learned from the ranchers that what we need to do is just keep the grass short. That will minimize their food source, and then hopefully that they will die out upon the return of our regular trade winds and the rains. So far, I just harvested, I had to harvest my last bit of uala and not plant because these worms were way too happy in there, and I didn't want them making home in our mala. So I harvested it, but there was no worms this time. And we have all the cowboys graze the grass down low. I've been keeping our grass low. So that seems to have helped, and then we've gotten our rains back. So with the changes, some people like to say that climate change is a hoax or whatever, but I think as people on an island, we see the impacts of global warming and the habitats that are affected as a result of that and stuff like that. So for us, we're anticipating these dry spells happening. What was happening was they were happening often and close together. That's what made them do the damage that they did. The dry spell is normally we have 1 or 2 a year, but we had 3 in a row. We didn't really have time to recover, and then we were into another one. So with that in mind, seeing that is probably going to be a pattern for us to endure, we're trying to come up with ways to have some rain on the aina for us, for our plants. Yeah. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. Nohea or Kaʻimi?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Hi. So basically, I was just wondering, because you've been observing this landscape for your whole life, and you've seen the changes that have happened, and if we're thinking about the future and how we can adjust now to make the future better, what are some of the things that you've noticed change due to the weather change? The global warming and stuff. And what are things that you're taking action to try and bring them back on track in your area or in your life?
So I know, like, growing up, I've experienced a whole forest without keiki and makua. So you enter a forest where there's just big kupuna trees. And with the work that a lot of differing landowners have been doing, mainly the state, the Nature Conservancy, Kamehameha schools, they fenced off a big portion of our ka'u forest for watershed protection. And just from and then they removed all of the ungulates within the fenced units. And just from that action alone in my time, I am able to see full forest with every member of the family present, keiki, makua, kupuna. And just fencing off the forest brought back some plants and ferns that they thought, may have gone extinct, but they're here and they exist and their seeds sprouted. So that's a big plus for our forest. And at our coastline, we deal with a lot of marine debris washing in from all over the place. We cannot pinpoint where exactly it comes from. It comes from humans. That's where it comes from. But with the steady currents, we've been getting a lot of marine debris. And so, you know, instinctively, we all gather big community groups and we go down and we clean up the beach. But what we've been trying to do now is go into schools and educate these students that cleaning the beach is not the solution to protect marine wildlife, you know, marine habitat and wildlife. The solution is changing our behavior. So I remember growing up as a child, women always had that time after the big luau. They'd be in the kitchen washing dishes, putting things away. And then later on in life, I realized that we never had that component anymore. Women never had that interaction. Why? Because we started using plastic forks, disposable stuff that you just throw away. So when the party is done, everybody just throw away their rubbish, you know, not much to clean up, but you lose that female time in the kitchen. And so now me and my family, instead of buying the 500 count plastic forks for our luau, we use real forks and paper plates, and might seep through, but you got to eat fast, you know. But changing those kinds of behaviors for the sake of really not needing to go clean up the beach, but contributing on a larger scale to the greater good. And it's so funny because, you know, I have in my own family, oh, what do I do with this fork? So I tell them, what do you do with the fork at home? We washed it. I said, so you go wash your metal fork and you go put it back for the next person to use. So we have to reintroduce a behavior that I, in my lifetime, got to witness, and then it got lost, and then now we're trying to bring it back, if that makes any sense to you guys. But yeah, so the little changes, it has nothing to do with climate really, but rather human behavior and how we can make changes.
Mahalo nui for sharing that. Every little bit helps adjust right back to the track. So mahalo. Those are good ideas too.
And even with you know, pig hunting, people think, oh, you're removing pigs from the forest. Hey, we're taking 12% of the forest for watershed protection. That still leaves like 90-something% or 80-something% for you guys to still hunt. But even then, when you go back to the old traditional ways of pigs in Hawaii, they never were allowed to roam free because, you know, hula practitioners and la'au lapa'auis, they knew the value of these plant people. They never had hospitals, you know, and so they knew the damage pigs could do. Pigs were usually raised by your kauhale, but you know, to tell this modern day hunter who thinks hunting is a traditional cultural practice, you know, there's a thin line, there's a fine balance, but you know, we cannot change the strong-minded hunter. I need to feed my family. We understand all of that, but you can live without meat. You cannot live without water. And so when you cannot change this generation, you know, we started going into schools and introducing them to the forest and showing them the important people who are there and their function, really getting personal. This is olapa, and this is the type of dyes you can make. You can make lei with this, and in hula schools, this is what they're symbolic of. And, you know, and these kids get it. And they understand that, oh, okay, there's places that we should be hunting and places that should be protected, because we're still trying to find that balance so that we can all live in harmony. And every time it just makes me cringe when we say, oh, we got to create a management plan for Keola Ka'a or Waikopuna or Kaunamano. I'm like, we don't need to create management plans. Just humans need management. That's the bottom line. Humans need management.
That's beautiful.
Kaʻimi, you have a mana'o?
Yeah, I was thinking a few years ago, because we've been really working hard on our proposal for like over 5 years, but really over the last 20 years, you know, but there was huge coral bleaching And we were very worried about, you know, what's happening in our corals, because they feed us, they feed the fish, they feed, you know, there's all that they all work together to provide, and they all have their part. And we noticed that we needed to do something, because we see the impacts happening on in the water when, you know, these corals are dying, or the habitats of our fish have now changed tremendously from what we know, from what we have remembered. And I think to us, we learned about their health and their life cycles, and then we started to provide our own testimony, like, well, what did we notice in the past? And a lot of it has changed because we have done the damage. Yeah, like Nohea has been sharing a lot about that in her mana'o regarding, you know, how do we manage ourselves is critical, because we're the ones that need to really understand, you know, what is important about our place, and how are we going to make sure it's going to be able to feed the next many generations of people. So when we started to see that back in 2015, we really wanted to understand what was happening. So we started to work with different organizations to really understand, you know, what's happening. We noticed the temperature of water was a little bit warmer, you know, and that's something we're not really, you know, we're not really want to understand why or what's going on. So it does affect these resources that we know are important. And I think what we're doing is trying to really find a balance so that we can still be able to feed our families, but at the same time, we need to know we cannot overtake, we cannot, especially when it comes to like our community is growing. So a lot of pollution is happening. We need to educate our community on, you know, the uses of pesticides and those things that can come into our waters and damage the reefs. And that's also impacted, but that took us time to learn as a community of, you know, where do we, you know, need what we need to do. And that's been education, really getting out there, sharing with the owners, the landowners in this community, sharing with the keiki what to do and how to become better stewards, and then trying to apply it. And that's been the critical area of how do we do that. So our rules haven't gone into effect, but our goal is really sharing to the ohanas that we need to take action. So it's kind of like a voluntary thing. So most of us scale, right? We see these specific herbivores, the reef fish, particularly the pakukui, is one of our most favorite fish we love to eat. So now we just our rule is to have a bag limit of 5, and then but we are voluntarily not diving for this particular fish, because we need to see it return so that, you know, we can see it take care of the next generation of Lawaiʻi. So we have voluntarily done this, but it's gonna take a lot more than just that. But we are seeing, we're trying to still find out why we don't see a lot of it return. But like anything, it's gonna take time. The Konahiki knew exactly what to do to create balance, but because we have gone away from those practices, we have all of us we become like everybody, because if they can do them, we can do them too. And that's not what our kupuna taught us. And that's why we need to change the narrative, change the story, and really do the work that we're all doing, because we love our place. We're going to live here, we're going to die here. So, you know, it's really important, because never have climate change before. It was, you know, it was something that it's gotten, it's really a big thing from the perspective of a lot of our kupuna who are seeing the changes, and then we're now facing with it, and now the next generation will probably have to live without a lot of these things that we're blessed to have.
We have a question from Ali.
Aloha kako, nice to see everybody. Thank you for sharing all your wonderful mana'o. Wow, this room is like awesome. I just wondered if you each could like put in a nutshell where each of us in this room could start taking care of our aina, something that we can each do, including like of course, we would always love to volunteer for each of your huis, and we do. But what is your advice of how to how each person can individually do something about climate change and do something about mitigating the effects of it?
Okay, Ali, that's a little loaded.
Well,
But
it's just basically what can we do like today? Where can we start? What's the first step?
like, okay, well, because I get to grow what we get to grow, I'm going to say everybody should grow uala. Uala is like a very forgiving plant. If you guys cannot grow uala, then it mustn't be just you. Something else must be happening. But uala is forgiving. In fact, once you harvest it, the bugger comes back and keeps coming back. We call them volunteers when they do that. But anyways, yeah, for immediate action, outside of what Kaʻimi and Nohe have already mentioned, which I think is critical, is definitely changing our behavior, but that awareness of our behavior, so I learned a long time ago from this kupuna, and he said, he used to grow, or not grow, but fish for opelu on the Kaihai coast before the Kaihai harbor was built. So once the Kaihai harbor was built, it changed the currents over there and they no longer come in. Anyways, he says, so when the opelu was coming good, everybody happy. And then, everybody must be doing good because everybody's happy and we got opelu and stuff. He goes, but when it wasn't running good and should have been running good, then the Hawaiian asks himself, what am I doing? Or what am I not doing that is contributing to this shortcoming? So that would be my nugget I would leave with everybody, what I learned from this kupuna.
I can add, so we have a program because of all of the work that we're doing now with this project. We have to understand what's really happening. So our kumu, we have a program called Mohalana Konehiki, which basically is teaching us how to be the see through the lens of a konehiki. So Uncle Mac Poipoi from Molokai comes every at least tries to come once or twice a year to teach our young leaders here in Miloli'i about understanding our place and building the deeper relationship so we can make the inferences and decisions which we're making now, right? And he's so wise, and he said the resources, the aina, the land will take care of itself, and it's really us as kanaka that need to understand how to apply ourselves in it, and we need to know our part. So I always go back to that because he always tries to put those words of wisdom in us every time we come, because we're thinking of all these different reasons, but it's really this aina going to take care of us, that we need to know how to know our place and our part. So that's my little manao to that question. Hi, aloha Ali.
I think a good place to start is, whether you're born and raised in your wahi or not, find a space that means something to you and learn all you can about the space. Learn the name, go there, feel the wind. If there's water, drink the vai, go to a forest, go to the ocean, eat the fish, make a lei from the forest. And if you're not talented in any of that, sit in the space, write a song, write a haiku, anything, so that you can start to build a relationship to the space. And as you start to give, you'll start to receive, and the land will tell you what to do. It doesn't have to be a kupuna. The aina is kupuna, the wind is kupuna, the ocean is kupuna. When you go to these spaces, that's what you can do to connect your Wi-Fi. That's your nature Wi-Fi. Go there, connect, and just spend time just like you would a grandparent, and things will come. Like, I never could write mele. I cannot even sing to save my life, but you know, when you connect, it comes and it happens, and people are like, wow, you can sing, or oh, that's so beautiful. And it's just, you have to, it's in you. I think what nature does is awakens all of these senses through smell, taste, you know, all of those, feeling, visually. That's a good place to start. You know, go in your own moku, go find out what the name of the place is, know the history of that aina, makavalu what that name meant, and come to your own conclusion to why a certain place was given that name. By all means, go look up your own name. You know, I always hesitate with my nieces. They ask me like, oh, what is ohe or what is ea? They're makavaluing my name because they're trying to see what characteristics I possess because of the way they can break down my name. And I'm like, what do you want to know? Just ask, you know. But do that with your aina and see what transpires from that action. That's all I have. I guess that's all I have to say. I mean, I have a lot to say, but for starters, there you go. And then, like, you can expand like Drew does. He calls me up and be like, we want to come to Huaka'i and Ka'u, wherever you decide. And I'm like, okay, Ka'u, where are we going to take them? Where can they utilize? Where can you utilize them today? And okay, sometimes Drew comes to Ka'u and we don't know where we're going till he gets here. I'm like, oh, Mocha is nice. Let's go there. Or Punaluu is right there. Oh, somebody no more 4-wheel drive. Oh, you have 4-wheel drive? Okay, we're going to go all the way down here. You know, and we just kind of, sometimes you don't even need to have a plan. You just gotta, like Kehal said, look at the weather, you know your vahi in so much that, do they need to experience what it's like when they don't pack their rain gear, you know? So stuff like that. Go on Huaka'is. Sign up for, you know, find a vahi that you're interested in. Like, I've barely spent time in Kohala, but you know, what I can do is now I have Kehau. I can reach out to her and like, hey, what volunteer opportunities are there? And I can go volunteer. You know, same like we always get Hana and Ka'u, and service learning doesn't always come in a form of hard work. You know, come connect to our forest, come connect to the different historical cultural sites. Yeah.
Mahalo nui, all of you. Mahalo. Good nutshells.
It's spectacular advice. Mahalo to all of you. Thank you very much. It seems like we're running out of time, but we just wanted to make sure that if any people in the audience have any questions for you folks, they would be able to pose them before we go. But if not, we can wrap up pretty soon. Are you folks like just reflecting on all of this powerful stuff that we've just heard? Okay, mahalo. So maybe what we can do is we can hear from our moderator just really quick, and then maybe we can all say, you know, mahalo ahuiho to everyone. I think we've all been positively transformed by what we've heard. People from 3 very different parts of this mokopuni of Hawaii Island. It's pretty amazing that we have got the chance to spend this time with you folks. We are very, very grateful. If there's no more questions, maybe could one of the moderators just share a closing remark?
I think there's just so much to think about, and something I'm really taking from today is malamaing ourselves so that we can be the bridges, and also like listening to the Aina. And there's just so many amazing things from this session, and I want to thank everyone and encourage you to come to any more of our Lā Honua events throughout the month. And yeah, special thank you to everyone and to Drew for organizing all of this. And yeah, that's what I can say right now.
Okay, mahalo nui. Are we good? Okay, mahalo Kaʻimi and Nohea and Kēhaulani. You folks have changed our lives in such important ways. So thank you very much. And thanks so much to our audience members for being here today.
Mahalo nui.
listen to the podcast too. You guys can hear stories from these folks and hear even more details. Okay. Ahui ho, everyone.
Hui ho.
Aloha.
Ahui ho. Thank you guys.
Happy
Mahalo
Easter.
nui.
Aloha.
Aloha.